Okay, next thing we're going to do now is we're going to bring a room in and we're going to test that our bats work. So here's the icon for create a room. There's our room. All I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the left bat, and I'm going to position it, so I'll make my room a bit bigger so I can see it, the whole thing. The width of it, place it about here, and I'm going to move across my room. I'm going to choose my right bat, and I'm going to position it pretty much in the same position, maybe there. Let's get rid of that. There we go. Okay, I'm going to save that, and I'm going to test it by hitting the green button to test my game. My game loads. There's my game. And I should be able to do my W button to go up, S button to go down, so that's working fine. Although we can move our bats left and right, which is no problem, if you keep holding down they actually go off the screen, so they actually leave the room, which is no good. What we want to do now is we want to set up an event that will allow us to have a collision, so when they hit something they come back rather than going off the screen. So that's what we're going to do next. Okay, the first thing we're going to do now is we're going to create an object for the wall, so it's got something to bounce against. So we're going to call this one object wall, and we're going to create a sprite for it. I'll bring in the sprite we've already got, sprite wall. That's all we need to do. Say OK. Now we need to go back into our bat objects, and we need to add in there a collision. So what we need to do is we need to go for the add event. We need a collision event, and we want to have a collision with the wall. And what we want to happen when that when we collide with the wall is we want a bounce event. So this one here is called bounce. You drag bounce in. What do we want it to bounce against? We want it to bounce against all objects. Okay, so once we've done that, we say OK, and we say OK again, and we need to do the same thing for the right one. So bring in the right wall, add an event, go for a collision event against the wall. We want that to bounce, so when anything hits the wall it bounces off it. What do we want to do? We want it to bounce against everything, all objects. So say OK, say OK again. Now we can open our room up by double clicking it, and we can place our wall on there. So if we open that up a bit bigger so we can see most of it, and we're going to bring in our wall, and at the very top along here I want to put, oops, if I hold down shift as I drag, it will fill all those squares in for me, to make sure I've gone right the way across. And I want to do exactly the same at the bottom. I'll hold down shift, drag it across, so I've now got a wall that borders the top and bottom of my game. Okay, so now that I've created my room, I can close that up and I can test it again, run my game, and I should have the room will open up. And what I should find now is that when I use my arrow keys, my W to go up, it hits against the wall, S to go down. And we'll test the other side as well, up key, so it bounces when it hits against the wall there, it stops, which is exactly what we wanted it to do. Let's close that back again. Okay, next thing we need to do is to work on the ball object. We haven't got an object called ball yet, we've also got a sprite called ball, so we're going to create our object. We're going to call this object ball, object underscore ball. I'm going to get the sprite for it, which is the ball sprite, and I obviously want to set up some events and actions now, so something can happen to that ball. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to add an event, and to the create event I'm going to go for one called move. It's actually moving in a particular direction, and the direction that I choose are dictated by the arrows I click. So I'm going to allow it to move in these directions, so that those red arrows now will allow it to move in those directions, and I'm going to set the speed to 8, and I'm going to say OK. Okay, we're now going to add another event. We're going to add up a collision event, and we're going to have a collision with the wall. And what we want it to do when it hits the wall is we want it to bounce, which is this one, and we want it to bounce off all objects. And we're going to say OK. Next we're going to set the collisions up against the bats as well. So same thing, we're going to go to add event, choose a collision. This time we'll go for the left bat, and when it hits the left bat rather, we want it to bounce again. This time we want it to come same off all objects, but instead of not precisely, we can say precisely, so that will mean that the actual control over the bat will be more precise. Say OK, and finally the same thing, we're going to add an event again, another collision. This time we're going to go for bat right, we're going to add the bounce in again, and again we're going to choose all objects, and we're going to choose precisely and say OK. Okay, we can say OK to all that now, close it down, and if we go back into our room now, and inside our room what we want to do is place the ball somewhere. So here's my room, let's make that a bit bigger so we can see it a little bit easier. Somewhere in the middle I want to place the ball, so when it starts off, that's what the first thing that happens is that ball moves. So ball is already selected down here, I'm going to click in here somewhere, that's where it's going to start off. I'm going to save my room, and I should be able to run this game now, and hopefully if I've got my hands on my little bats, I should be able to actually try and play the game a bit. Oops, there we go. Oop, no, lost straight away. Okay, so now one of the things you can see there is obviously at the moment, as soon as the ball's gone through one goal, the game apparently finishes. So we need to change that, and we also need to try and add some scores in so we know which player is actually scoring goals. So that's the next thing we're going to do. Okay, next thing you need to do is to make your objects for your scoring. So we're going to go to the object icon again. We're going to call this first one obj underscore score left, and we're going to bring in the sprite for the left score. There we are, left score sprite, and say OK. And we're going to do exactly the same for the right one, object score right, and we'll bring in the right icon. Okay, you see down here now we've got those two objects set up and ready to go. We're now going to bring our ball object back up again, and what we need to do is we need to add a collision event on this one. This time the collision is going to be with the left score, and what we want it to do is when there's a collision with the left score, we want it to jump back and start the game again. So we're going to drag this one over here, it applies to itself, we'll say OK. We're going to do exactly the same thing for the right score, so add event, collision, score right, and jump to start, apply it to itself, say OK. Okay, we can say OK to that now, and the next thing we want to do is open our room up again, and this time we want to put those scoring areas in our room. So basically we're going to create a wall with those. So if we're going to go for the right score, so the right score is our yellow object, so basically the right player is on the right hand side, but where he scores is on the left, so we need to make a wall. So again, hold down shift and drag, so that's the scoring area, and we'll go across to the other side, change our score right to our score left, and again hold down shift while you drag and create the wall effect this end. So this is what the wall's going to hit against. Okay, we'll close that down now, and then we'll test it and see how that works. So what we should find is we've got a scoring area at both ends of the room. And every time the ball goes through, we basically get a score going on. So let's see if I can actually play it a little bit. No, oh, there we go. So plays back again, goes through, starts again. Every time there's a goal scored. There we go. So you'll see what happens is when it goes through, it scores a goal and the game will start up again. There we go. Okay. One thing we can do to make the game look a little bit better is if we go into our score left object and we take off the visible click, that means that we won't see that area of wall at either end, even though it's there. So we'll say OK to that one, and we'll do exactly the same with the right one. We'll take the visible off, say OK. And the next thing we want to do is we can add a delay into the when things start up again. So if we go into the ball object, go to the score left, and this time we're going to go for a sleep timer, which is on, let's have a little look, there we go, the one with the Z's on. Drag that on there. 1000 is equal to 1 second, so that's okay. It gives us a 1 second delay before the ball comes back into play again. Okay, we're going to do exactly the same for the right one. Drag that into here, 1 second delay, say OK, say OK. Okay, what we want to do now is to add some scores in so we can see when people score goals. So I'm going to go back into the ball object again, open it up. This time I'm going to go to where it says score left, and for score left I'm going to go to the scoreboard, and here there's one that says set score, Okay, and I'm going to choose set score, the first object, drag it into here, and what I want to do is to give one goal or 1 point every time the ball goes through. So I'm going to make it relative, so that means it adds on each time, and say OK, and there we have that one set ready. Now we're going to go on to score right. For this one we're going to use lives instead of score, so it looks a bit different. I'm going to put that one up here, same idea, 1 and relative to make sure that that works. Click OK. Just check that this one was in the middle position there, so I can drag that and move it so they both come after the jump to start position. Something else we need to do is we need to make sure that when the game starts the scores are set to 0. So I'm going to go back to the very beginning where it creates and it starts the game off, and I'm going to set the score by dragging the same thing in again. This time I do want the score to be set to 0 and I don't want to tick the relative, and the same for lives. I'm going to drag that in, set it to 0, not to relative. OK, and there we are ready to do the next bit, which is going to be to add some score in on the actual room. Click OK there. Okay, first thing to do for that is to create a new object. This object is going to be the scoreboard, so we're going to call that object underscore score. There's no sprite associated with this one, so we're going to add an event which is basically a draw event. We're going to click on draw, and what we want to draw is we want to draw a score. So we're going to click on the score, this one here, the last one says draw score, drop that one into place. We want to set the position at 40 by 40, so this is where it's going to be on the screen, and we give it a caption, so this can be player left, oops, capital L there, don't want that, and click OK, and we're going to do the same thing for the player right, which was the lives, so we want to draw lives, put that one in there. This position is going to be slightly different. This one will be 450 by 40, and this one is going to say player right. Click OK, click OK again. Now we want to open our room up again. When our room is open we want to place our object score, which is always the last one that comes up in here. You could choose from the list. The object score is the last one. You see there's no graphic attached to this one, so it's actually will be transparent in many respects when it plays for real. I'm just going to bung that in somewhere up by here. You see there's a little question mark on it, that shows that it's a see-through one, and we're going to click close on here, and we're going to play the game and see what happens. So we should find that the score, oops, not very good at playing it there. Player 3 is hammering, there we go. And so on, so you see that the scores are actually adding up now as we go through. Okay, so that basically gives you your ping pong game. That's the very basic version, and you're going to need to read the instructions on the intranet web page here to see what other things you might need to add or change on your own one. But that tutorial hopefully will get you up and going in making your game. Good luck.